Hi guys, welcome back to Too Cool for Middle School. I have a really fun video for you today. I'm doing a collaboration with Paige from Love and Literacy. She's starting a new teacher channel right now. I had followed her booktuber channel. I was trying to remember back. I think she had commented on one of my videos, and her username, like her channel name, I was just like, yes, yes. Her booktuber channel is Paige's Pages. And I was just like, of course there's a channel called Paige's Pages. That is great. Some people I'm just so impressed with their usernames. Like there's a girl I follow on Instagram called Pens and Pencil Skirts. She has like a teacher fashion page. I was just like, pens and pencil skirts. Why didn't I think of that? That's so good. And then the other day, I don't even know why I was thinking about this, but I was like, you know what would be the coolest Instagram name if you were Buddhist and like that was what your page was about? I don't know. But if you called it Cutest Buddhist, that would be so funny. So I looked it up and somebody has that username. I was like, good for you, follow, because I like your name. So anyway, I am all about a good channel name, username. So go over to Love and Literacy. I like that one as well, by the way, and check out Paige's 5 favorite online resources. Now some of mine I've mentioned before, but it's just kind of nice to compile them all into one place. Sometimes I mention things in videos that aren't really about like online resources. So today I'm just going to tell you about some of my favorite online resources. Number one, I've mentioned a million times. I love Flocabulary. You probably already knew I was going to say that. It's a subscription service, but of course you can get like a free trial for, you know, a limited amount of time. You could get a school-wide subscription or a district-wide subscription, or like me, you can just pay for your own. It's like $12 a month, I think, or you can pay for a whole year at a time. I usually just pay for it a month at a time, then I don't pay for it over the summer. So good though. I especially like it for English, but they have history resources, science, math, even like study skills and stuff like that. So for English, it's really good because they've got a bunch of videos about like grammar, or reading and writing techniques. They have different literature videos. They have a bunch on different like Shakespeare plays. So for every topic, they have a super catchy song with a video, and the kids love watching them. I usually play it like several times, so it kind of gets stuck in their head. And then they have a quick review, so you can click on the quick review and then do like a class review of the video. And then I usually play it like one more time after that so that they kind of realize what they should have picked up on if they didn't before. And then they always have little handouts, like activities that go with the video that you can just print and give to your students. And then they also have quizzes that go with every lesson that you can give to your students. So for me, especially for like a sub day, those are really, really good resources because I can just leave the website up, tell the sub to play a video, and then hand out some worksheets and you're done. You don't even have to make your own. So I know it's, you know, money on my end, but the amount of time that it saves me and the payoff that I get out of it is worth it to me. They also have these week in wrap videos that I hadn't really used in the past, but I've been using more this year. So every Friday they do a video about just kind of what happened in the news in the past week. It's usually like a combo of like some political news, some like scientific breakthroughs, just some like funny things about like animals, or kind of kids that have done something newsworthy in the last week. There's like 7 or 8 stories that they can fit into one song. And then there are vocabulary worksheets that go with those week in wrap videos. So it's like current events vocabulary. A lot of my students have a lot of academic vocabulary, but then when it comes to current events and just kind of like using the vocabulary in everyday language, they struggle a little bit. I can see that from the assignments that I've given them this year. And then a lot of times there is like a graphic of some kind, or a graph, and then students have to make meaning out of the graph, and I feel like that is also a good skill for them to have. And then at the end they can always practice doing a shout out on their own, so they can write their own rap about the topic of the week and submit it, and then they get a shout out if you're the school chosen that week, and it's always right at the beginning of the next video. So my kids' goal is to get on like the shout out. So I can't say enough good things about Flocabulary. I love it. I'll probably keep my subscription forever. The next resource I really like is Brainpop, and I feel like I'm really late to the game on this one. I think people have been using it for a long time. But somebody mentioned to me that our district has an account, like you could just put in a password and a username and you can get to Brainpop, and I was like, oh really? Because it's kind of an expensive one to do on your own. I remember looking into it before and I decided against it, but now that I have access to it, I am loving it. My Read 180 class, if you happen to also teach Read 180, is on the chapter about the Harlem Renaissance. And for students who are not from this country, they don't have like a point of reference for, you know, New York, all the way across the country, or like the 1920s and 30s especially, and so it was a little bit hard for them to understand what the Harlem Renaissance was. So it was nice to just direct them to Brainpop for a day, and I just let them explore whatever they wanted. So we watched the video. They have some great videos that are animated. There's like a little robot and he shows up in all of them. And then there are really cool quizzes, and the quizzes test them in several different ways and kind of incorporate vocabulary and comprehension. And so for my students that was really good. And you can set it so that they're just I forget the term that they use on the website, but like it'll tell you what you got wrong and then you can go back and fix it. So I always allow them to do it that way so they can just keep going until they get 100%. There's like a timeline feature and all these different things. So again, I had just kind of told my students to explore because I didn't even really know enough about the website to like assign them different tasks. I just was like, can you be my guinea pigs? Get on there and show me all the coolest things that you can find. And I just walked around and looked at what they were doing and I loved it. For my other English classes right now, they're doing a Farewell to Manzanar, and so they needed like that background knowledge of Pearl Harbor, and so they have been doing a little bit of research on Pearl Harbor through Brainpop, and that video was like really good because that's a really complex thing to try to explain. They had so many questions about like World War II and the causes and all the different countries involved, and so I just showed that video and they were like, oh, okay. Actually, it brought up a bunch more questions, but that still answered a lot of what they had been asking me, and then they got to play around with the different quizzes and stuff too. So far, I haven't used it that much, but every topic that I've looked up is there, and it has great videos and great information and great little assessments too. The next resource I love is Reading Like a Historian. I've also mentioned this many times. This is a website run by Stanford, and what I love about it is that they use primary source documents, and the focus is on learning to read these primary source documents and make meaning of what you have read, and then, you know, kind of answer some kind of a larger question. There are resources on Reading Like a Historian, and you can print out like little posters about how to read like a historian, so like sourcing, context, and stuff like that. So they give you resources that just like apply to any lesson, and then they have ancient history. So for my school, that's like 6th graders, and so I have partnered with the other 6th grade history teachers, because that's been a big push at our school this year, is to do cross-curricular collaboration. And so I was like, well, I know a really easy way to do it. Just tell me what section you're on. I will find a Reading Like a Historian lesson that applies, and we'll do that in English, and so they can work on like their writing skills and their reading skills on whatever topic you're doing in history, and then we each kind of like support the skills of the other class. So this year we did one on Egypt, and the question was, did slaves build the pyramids in Egypt? And that was a great lesson. I definitely suggest that one, even if you don't need to do like that subject matter. It was just really good because it had different sources from completely different eras and completely different types of people, like historians, archaeologists, ancient philosophers and historians, and they all had differing views and differing conclusions, and so they had to decide like which sources were credible and what they were going to believe, and so there really wasn't one right answer. So that led to some really good discussion, some really good papers. We recently did one on Confucianism and Taoism. That one was really great as well. Last year when I taught 8th grade US history, I used several from the US history section There's a medieval history section. There's more like modern history. I remember there's one on like the Philippines, like the US and the Philippines that's really good. Whether you're a history teacher or an English teacher, definitely check out Reading Like a Historian. It's free. You just have to make an account and then you can get in at any time you want and print anything you want. Oh, and the other great thing about it is that you can use like the real primary source documents if you want to give your students a little bit of a challenge, but then they also offer like modified versions of the primary source documents that are just a little bit shorter and have some of the original language taken out sometimes, so it's a little bit easier to comprehend the actual content. So you've got those options, plus there's a teacher's guide and like gives you the answers and everything. Another resource that I really liked and I used quite a bit at the beginning of the year is CommonLit.org. This is another free website where you just have to make an account, and your students can make an account as well, and they go to whatever story it was that you had assigned. And so I would just give the link to them on Google Classroom, and then they could go straight to whatever story I had assigned to them. Now, the best thing about CommonLit is that you can refine your search down to exactly what you want. So you can either refine it by like grade level, and to be honest, this is probably a better resource for high school because almost everything is at like a high school reading level. So if you're a high school English teacher, this will just give you like hundreds of stories to choose from. For middle school, it's just a little bit less, like it's gonna narrow your search down and you're gonna have a little bit less to choose from, but there's still a bunch of options up there. So you can do it by grade level, then you can do it by genre. So if you're looking for a short story or a poem or whatever, you can find that. And then you can do it by standard, by like Common Core standard, which is incredible. So if you're specifically looking to do a lesson to meet a specific standard, you can just go in and it'll give you a list of everything that meets that standard. You can also do it by theme or by topic, and I think even a few more things. So the search engine on it is really, really good. You can just narrow it down to exactly what you want. There are quizzes that come with the readings, and so some of them are like a short answer response or even kind of like an essay response, and then some of them are multiple choice, and so it prepares them for testing at the end of the year. So this would be a really good thing you could assign to your students right before that state testing in the spring that some of us are coming up on pretty soon here. And they just have a collection of great stories. Like they had some Edgar Allan Poe that we did at the beginning of the year, some short stories. I had my 6th graders do a story by Chekhov at the beginning of the year, and I got an email from a parent like, I can't believe you're having my 6th grader do Chekhov. That's so amazing. Like, she was so excited to hear that we did that. And they were able to handle it. They did a really good job with it. And I think we did like a drawing of the setting. It just gives you access to a lot of great literature, because sometimes as an English teacher, especially right now, like if your district is kind of in between curriculum, and you haven't really adopted stuff for the Common Core standards, and then you kind of have outdated curriculum and it's left up to you to kind of fill in the gaps. This is a really good thing to fill in the gaps, and you can make sure that it's like Common Core aligned. And the last site that I have really been liking is called Verso. I think the website is like versoapp.com. If you try to go to verso.com, it takes you somewhere else. This is another free site where your students can make an account and you can pose a question, and then your students can respond, and it's anonymous. So it just says like user 1, user 2. On your end, it'll tell you who responded, but on their end, they can't tell. So it's nice for like warm-ups at the beginning of the day. So you could say something like, describe the best meal you've ever eaten in 2 sentences. And it does have a character limit, kind of like Twitter, but it's like 400 characters or something. So they can't write a ton, but they can write a few sentences. So they could try and write like the most descriptive sentence that they possibly can. And then those will show up on everybody's screen. Like I think once you've submitted, then you can see everybody else's. And then you can vote for the one that you like the best, so they can click like. They could also respond, so you can tell them that they need to respond to like 2 posts and ask a question, and then that user will respond to their question or something like that. You can post a picture with the question, and I kind of like that. You can save your questions. You can either make it like just like a writing prompt or a question. So I think it's just a really good thing for the beginning of the day to like kind of get students' brains warmed up and their writing skills warmed up. And then it's a way for them also to just see really good writing if you have some really good writers in your class, and be inspired by that. And then, you know, if they're not that great of a writer and they didn't really put much into it, it's not public, you don't know who put that up there, but they're kind of like, oh, maybe I should like step it up a little bit. So once they have their accounts and everything, then it's pretty easy to use, and you know, you can just go in like a few minutes before the bell rings and like put a question up and then have them get started on that for the day. Now, since we're talking about tech, I'm just gonna throw in a bonus for you. I just started listening to this podcast called House of Ed Tech, and there are like 82 or 83 episodes right now. I think I'm on episode 81, I'm pretty sure, 81 or 82. It's run by a fellow teacher named Chris Nessie. He lives in New Jersey, and so he interviewed me a couple weeks back just about like doing YouTube and how I use technology in my classroom. And so I started listening to all the other podcast episodes, and there are some really cool tech things out there that I had no idea about. And the nice thing about a podcast is like, I want to know more about technology and more about incorporating technology into my classes, but like sometimes when you have to go to professional development, it is just not the right time. Like if it's after a full day of teaching and like really you need to get some stuff graded and call a few parents, but you have to go to this professional development, you're just kind of like, and your brain is not really all the way there. And then if it's one of those where it's like a full day and you know you don't have students but you have to sit there for a full day, that gets kind of hard. So I think teachers want professional development, it's just that the timing can be rough. So if you can just listen to a podcast on your own time, it's only like an hour, you know, maybe while you're driving to work or something like that, I receive it better, you know what I mean? And I'm like more interested in it, and I can actually, like, my brain is a little bit more freed up so I can think of ways to apply what I learned in the podcast. So I definitely recommend that podcast. There are just a bunch of expert teachers in technology that he interviews, much more expert than me. I think I've learned way more than I like contributed, I feel like, but it's a really, really good podcast. So anyway, I'm really excited to also jump over to Paige's channel, Love and Literacy, and see what she had to say. And I forgot to say, she teaches 5th grade English, and so I teach 6th grade English, so we have kind of similar assignments. So I like to see what she's doing, just like on Snapchat or whatever. You can follow her on Snapchat or on her teacher channel and just see what's going on in her classroom. You can also follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. All of those accounts are linked below, so if you want to keep track of what's going on in my classroom, that's where you can find me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!